Hey, what's going on, YouTube? Welcome to another episode of the Great Black Speakers Podcast, where we connect through conversation. I am your host, Lawrence Watkins. I am the founder and CEO of Great Black Speakers Bureau. I'm also the president and chief operating officer of the Black Business School. And today we have a very, very special guest. We are here with Mr. Ron Story Jr. Ron is a serial entrepreneur and also the CEO of PitchDB, which is a search engine for speaking engagements and podcasts. And today we're talking about how to start a tech company when you don't know how to code. So Ron, I've known him for, I guess a couple of months now, or maybe even. I met him down here in Medellin, Colombia. And yeah, we hit it off. And, we're going to talk about that a little bit more too. But Ron, man, how are you doing today?
Oh, life is good, man. Nothing to complain about. We're in Medellin. It's 75 degrees on I don't know what day it is, Wednesday, I think. And yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, amen to that. Like even on the cloudy days like it is today, it's still way better than what it would be in the States at this moment in time. So blessed and highly favored, I suppose, right?
Oh yeah, man. It's really cold back in St. Louis. So yeah.
That's right. We're going to talk about that. But, before we get into everything, can you tell the audience, what it is that you currently do and how did you get to this point in your career?
Okay. So I'm a kid from East St. Louis, and currently I am the founder and CEO of PitchDB, which is the largest search engine for paid and free speaking opportunities for public speakers. So, or it could be for anybody. If you're an entrepreneur and you want to promote your business through speaking or through podcasting, you can use our search engine to find speaking opportunities or podcasting opportunities to be a guest.
Got you. So tell me, how did you get to this point in your career? Because I know you've had many, many other companies before, and this is one company in the portfolio companies that you've had over time. So, tell us a little bit about your story and your journey.
So my first company I actually started was when I failed out of engineering school at the University of Illinois. I was there in civil engineering. I failed all the physics and math classes. And I said, I probably should do business because accounting is just adding and subtracting. So I started writing business plans, and I started writing a business plan to try to open up a miniature golf and go-kart track in Champaign, Illinois. And I went to probably 50 or 60 different banks across Illinois and Indiana, and they all told me no, that they wouldn't provide me with any funding for that idea, So that was pretty interesting because I was good at writing business plans. And one of the bankers said, hey, we're not going to ever give you this money because you don't have any money, but you do write really good business plans. So can I send people to you to write their business plans? So in 1997, I was writing business plans for businesses making about $40 an hour at the time as a failed freshman in college.
Got you. So, thinking through that, I'm just looking and, listening to your story. How did you deal with that failure about failing out of college? Like what was going through your mind at that time? Like, did you view yourself as a failure or were you like, man, this is really not for me. I need to do something completely different with my life?
I mean, up to that point, I had never failed at anything outside of like being cut from a basketball team or something. Academically, I was, honor society, all of that while I was in high school. And, at the time, University of Illinois had the #1 civil engineering program in the world. So I was in that program and I just realized I wasn't totally prepared. I wasn't as prepared as I thought I was. So it was a huge ego bruise. And I cried like a baby, but I realized that, failure is something that you do, not something that you become. It's an action, not a noun. So I believe that, it's kind of, life is kind of like a science experiment. You're just constantly testing hypotheses, right? And if a scientist runs an experiment and the hypothesis is proved false, he's not a dumb scientist. His hypothesis was just proven wrong, right? So that's the way that I've always looked at life. Like, I'm just running these experiments. So I didn't really internalize it, even though it was painful. My mom just told me to get back up and get back to work. So I tried to start a business. That was something that I knew I could do. I have been, as a kid, you save cans, you go trade in the cans. I did that for a long time to buy shoes and a bunch of other stuff, collecting aluminum cans. So I always knew how to hustle. So I never thought it was a failure. I just knew I never wanted to be an engineer anymore.
Got you. So what was it like making that pivot, and how did you come up with the idea of, these golf parks or whatever?
So I was a part of a program in St. Louis called the Minority Youth Entrepreneurship Program. So some people could go to Inroads, which was like an internship thing, and then this thing called MyUp taught you how to start a business. So I chose to go that route when I was a junior in high school. So I had already knew how to write business plans, and at this time the internet was just coming aboard, right? Like the internet was just popping off. So this software had come out called Business Plan Pro that I had already had from being in MyUp that summer. I used part of my MyUp money to buy the software so we could try to win this competition. So I was just using that software to write the business plans because of my past experience. I'm like, if these people at Washington University thought these were good business plans, maybe I could come up with a plan that made sense and go borrow some money like they taught us that summer. So it was just going back to what I had already known.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that in terms of your education then, right? And, I had a program that was deeply influential into my life in regards to, shaping me to who I am now. And I talked about it in other, I guess, podcasts as well. But there's a program called Math and Science for minority students, where they take, kids, Black, Latino, and Native American kids from around the country and send them to a place called Phillips Academy in Andover, Massachusetts, which is, the #1 ranked boarding school in the country. And we're there for 6 weeks for 3 different summers. And, that opened my eyes to, what's really out here in the world, how the, 1% lives, what are they doing? Where do they send their kids? All those different types of things. And that shaped the opportunities that were available to me. And then just opened my eyes to, how big the world actually was. You mentioned this program, for youth, MyUp, I think that's what you called it. Talk about that in regards to these extracurricular educational programs that were outside of like your normal school education. Like, how did that program really influence you, especially as like a 16-year-old kid from St. Louis?
Right. So the funny thing is that I like to juxtapose my life against one of my friends named Reggie, right? And Reggie at the time went down the Inroads track, right? So sophomore and junior year, he did the Inroads internship. Well, I chose to go the entrepreneurship route. He still works at the company that he had his internship with 25 years ago today, right? And it's ironic that I'm still an entrepreneur 25 years. So I really believe that if you show people a certain path, it will open their eyes up to things that they've never seen before, but you never know. It may stick with them also, and it's what they'll fall back on, right? So for me, Inroads, I knew I wanted to be rich, and I never thought that I would get rich working for somebody, even though people have done it, right? But I'm thinking, well, being a business owner, that's the cool thing. So I want to do that. I want to learn how to own my own stuff or start my own stuff. So that's why I chose MyUp. And it was started by another Black entrepreneur named Ron Thompson. And he funded this thing for almost 20 years in the St. Louis area.
Got you. So, you came up, so you're in your early 40s, and, you came up during the time of, the internet, and when the internet was really blossoming. Can you talk about that then? Because talk about that new technology and leveraging that new technology when you are a 19-year-old kid, going to all these banks that aren't going to loan you money, but you had to pivot to something else that they actually did want. So can you talk about, I guess, the confluence or the intersection of all those different things and, how that really gave you your first big break with business?
Yeah. So one of the things that my roommate in college, he was a computer engineering major, right? And he knew how to code and he had a computer and everything. Well, at our school, I didn't have a computer growing up, like an IBM computer, right? So I didn't know anything about coding. All I knew was you got computer lab time at the high school, right? So since I was good at math and science, or at least I thought I was in high school, they just told me to be an engineer. So most of my friends, none of us that I went to high school with that were in the same math track, none of us went to school for anything dealing with computers or technology. We all went to engineering school. So all of my buddies growing up are mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, and I went for civil engineering. But all of us who were good, we just went to engineering because that's what the counselors told us that we should do. They never told us anything about computer programming or computer engineering or anything like that. So I just wasn't exposed to it. So even though I was growing up using the internet to search for stuff and, you know, having my AOL CDs and stuff like that online to look up rap lyrics, I was never using it. I was a consumer, not a producer of the internet, right? So, you know, it just never dawned on me until 2012 when my dad died that I should think about getting into the technology side of the world. And that was 10 years later. You know, I did nothing associated with computers. I just learned I was a sales guy. I was a financial advisor selling insurance and investments for 10 years before I made the switch over to the technology world in 2012.
Got you. So that's interesting. So you made that switch over a lot later than I thought you did. So you had an entire other career before you really even started, you know, to get into tech. And I want to talk about that in a second. You know, what happened after you started selling these business plans, and you know, how did you make that first, you know, pivot to, you know, whatever career that was, and eventually getting into the financial services industry as a financial advisor. But before we do that, just want to remind everyone I'm here with Ron Story Jr. Ron is a serial entrepreneur and CEO of PitchDB, which is a search engine for speaking engagements and podcasts. And you can find that at PitchDB database db.com. I'll put it in the description as well of this video, so you can check it out at a later point. And today we're talking about how to start a tech company when you don't know how to code. So if you guys like this video, please go ahead and show us some love by pressing the thumbs up button on YouTube. On the count of three, go ahead and do that for us. So 1, 2, 3, press the thumbs up button, show some love. We really appreciate you. Please make sure that you share this video with your friends and family who may be interested in the subject. And please make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. So you're 19, Ron, and you're doing these business plans at $40 an hour. Why aren't you still doing those business plans, 20 something years later? What was that first switch, in terms of opportunity?
Well, I mean, if you're asking about specifically business plans, well, anybody who has any entrepreneurial experience, we know that a business plan doesn't survive its first contact with reality. So you can have all these great plans on paper, but they don't mean anything when you get out there, right? I think Mike Tyson said, everybody knows how to fight until they get punched in the mouth. Well, every business plan is perfect. You've never seen a business plan fail, but we've seen businesses fail. So, business plans are kind of obsolete nowadays. So I don't write those. But when I was doing business planning, one of my friends named Walter had gotten a job at Prudential. And he said, man, I know you're making some money. Why don't you invest with us in these mutual funds? So I'm like, all right, I'll do it. And he's like, how much you want to do? I'm like, I don't know, $100 a month, right? So I did $100 a month in the mutual funds, and it started making some money. So eventually I was doing $500 a month. And I'm like, holy crap, this is really working. And my mom had hit me back because I wasn't going back to school. Like I had failed out of U of I, but I was still living in Champaign. And my mom said, look, you got to go back to school. You just can't not have a degree. And so she forged my name on the applications for schools that had entrepreneurship programs. And at the time, entrepreneurship wasn't a major. So it was a pilot program at Illinois State University and at Northern Illinois. They were the only two schools in the state of Illinois that offered a degree in entrepreneurship. So my mom said, yeah, you're going back to school. You're enrolled at ISU. I know you're still living in Champaign, but when your lease is up, you're moving to Bloomington. But in the meantime, for a whole semester, I drove from Champaign to Bloomington every day for class, because I still had a lease that wasn't up.
Wow. So that's interesting. So I did not know that. So how far is that drive?
45 minutes one way.
Okay. So 45 minutes each way, you're driving back and forth, between these two campuses. What caused your mom or made your mom value, I guess, education in that way, right? Like,
Oh,
what was it?
my,
What was it? Yeah, go ahead.
well, it's really simple. My dad's a teacher, my mom's an administrator. They've been in the school district their whole life. Like there was no way I wasn't going to college or getting a degree. It was like, dude, that's just what you better do. Like, don't come home until you're finished, right? So, yeah, that was pretty much the story. It wasn't any grand genius. It was, no, my kids are going to college. Both of my sisters had already gone to school. Of course I was going, right? Yeah.
Got you. So how was that transitioning to this, this new school, and what did you learn while studying entrepreneurship, and like, what do you think, I guess, about that experience in terms of studying entrepreneurship in college?
I was lucky. I was lucky because it was the first time that they had ever taught entrepreneurship, and they had hired business people to be adjunct professors to teach it, right? So in one of my classes, this lady named Cindy, I don't know her last name, but she had said, hey, does anybody want to try for a top 5 internship in the country with a financial advisory company called Northwestern Mutual? And I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. I've been investing my money. I know I can do this. I can sell this because I do it. I can tell people what I'm doing. So while I was at ISU, my first semester, I actually ended up doing the Northwestern Mutual internship, right? And yeah, that's it. I ended up doing the Northwestern Mutual internship. That's how I started giving financial advice as a 20-year-old knucklehead junior in college who wasn't going to class.
So that's interesting. So you did this internship. What did you learn, I guess, at that internship, that's useful today?
How to sell. No business works without the ability to sell. I learned all my sales skills at Northwestern Mutual. I still think it was the best training I ever got. It taught me how to cold call. I mean, my first week on the job, I cold called Darius Miles and his mom, and that lady cursed me out like you wouldn't imagine. She was a great lady, but she gave me the tongue lashing of a lifetime. And,
so why did she give you a tongue lashing? Because you were cold calling, or because why are these people calling my son, or that type of thing, or what?
Yeah, yep. I was good friends with the high school coach. My mom a teacher, my dad's a teacher. They're in the school district, so I know everybody. Everybody knows me. And the basketball coach was also the baseball coach. So I'm a few years older than Darius Miles. So I call the coach. I'm like, dude, come on, man, you got to give me the number. I'm doing this thing. He's like, Brian, if you ever tell anybody I gave you this number, I'm gonna kill you. And I'm like, whatever, man. I need a call, So I make the call, and I call her, and she's like, who's this? And I told her it was, and I told her what it was about. And she says, I can't say what she said, but she said some really horrible things. And I just said what was natural to me. I said, hey, you're scaring me. And instantly she turned into like my auntie. And she says, baby, I'm sorry, but everybody keep calling us and we just don't know what to do. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, oh, wait a minute, she's not screaming at me. She didn't hang up anymore. And we actually had like a 20-minute conversation. And, we had actually met before at a basketball tournament before I was even doing this internship thing. And she was like, yeah, I remember talking to you. And and it was just, we became friends like for that 15 minutes. I never talked to her again after that. But for those next 15 minutes, we became friends. And she was a great lady,
Well, that's interesting, right? Yeah. So that taught you a lot. She didn't become a client, but it talks about the value of rapport and, learning how to lower the defenses of individuals that you're, speaking to, who may be potential clients. So, since scale,
well, I'll tell you
sales,
one more thing I learned really quick.
Go ahead.
One thing I learned from her was, well, if I could call on her and her son was in the NBA, calling on people that just had regular jobs was easy. Like, I'm like, if rich people, this is the worst that rich people gonna treat me, I know these average people don't have a chance when I get them on the phone, right? So that made it easier for me to call anybody at that point, because somebody that I thought was a whale at the time, helped me out, right? It made it easier for me to call the smaller people.
Got you. So thinking about that though, is you're 20 years old at this time. how was it? I'm not sure if you met people face to face at all ever, but if they learned your age, how did they react when they found out that you were so young, and how did you deal with that?
So when people would see me, I mean, right now I'm 41 and nobody guesses that I'm 41, right? So you can only imagine how I looked at 20, 21, right? I was 130 pounds. I had two suits that I wore every day. I mean, I looked like somebody's kid. And one of my clients said, "Dude, why would I listen to you when I have kids that are older than you and I think they're stupid?" And I was like, yeah, that's kind of true. Like
Yeah.
the people I was meeting with, they had kids that were older than me, and no parent thinks their kid is. They always think their kids are making bad decisions. So they're like, this younger dude, how's he gonna tell me how to invest my money when he don't even have any money? He's still in college. Because I was never lying to people, acting like I wasn't still in school, right? But whenever it was someone that questioned what I was saying, I would bring in an older person that had been in the firm a little bit longer, and they would make up for my weaknesses, right? So what I had in the referral and the relationship, they had an experience and knowledge. So when you compare my referral to that person and the strength of the relationship, and then you added the other person's knowledge to it, it became a win-win.
Got you, man. Got you. So, no, that's interesting. So you were, having this job while you were going through school. And then you graduated from Illinois State, is that right?
Yeah, I graduated from Illinois State. I probably shamefully say that I never went to class. I only went to class on my finals and on midterms. And the day that I walked across the stage, two of my professors stopped me before stage and said, "You can walk, but we're not going to pass you because you didn't meet the attendance requirement of the college." And I said, "Well, that's okay. I'm not going to get a job anyway. Nobody's ever going to ask me for this degree." So I actually didn't, even though I walked across the stage and I finished my caseload in 2001, my actual degree that they mailed to my house says 2008 on it.
Got you. So you eventually finished up years later, but you didn't finish up at that particular time. Is that correct?
I finished everything. They didn't change the rules to give me my degree to 8 years later.
Oh,
I wasn't going back. I mean, no.
yeah. So you eventually got it. They eventually mailed it after they changed the rules, that type of thing. Now that's interesting because of something you said earlier in regards to when I asked you, what did you think about the program going through entrepreneurship? On one hand, it's the thing that got you this, internship. Professors were practitioners of business, right? But then on the other hand, you did not actually go to class, right? And that's why you didn't get your degree then. So help me reconcile those two positionings in regards to, I guess, the value of this entrepreneurship education that you received.
Okay. So some of the professors, since they were business people, they understood that I was working at Northwestern Mutual. So all of my class projects for those classes, they would let me use my Northwestern Mutual internship as for the business plan I had to write, for the marketing plan. It was all the stuff that I was using in the business. Does that make sense? But for these goofy people who was teaching like economics and the other crappy stuff that you didn't really need, but it was what you had to do, like quantitative methods and all this other stuff that was not practical business stuff, they had professors still teaching that. Does that make sense? And those were the ones that I was at conflict with. The ones who were actual business folks, they didn't care. They was like, "Dude, you turned in your stuff. I got A's in those classes," right? But it was the more technical ones where I'm like, "Dude, I'm not going to this dumb class. I'll read the book at home and I'll just, go take the test,
Right. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you're just a full-on entrepreneur. You finally found your stride, with that in regards to, this sales position, which is, I guess, semi-entrepreneurial like, at Northwestern Mutual. And, you found that stride and you stuck with it. And I think a lot of us conform to society, way too much when it comes to education. And sometimes in the past it may have been beneficial because it provided a certain level of stability for your life that you would not have had with that college degree. But if you know how to get out there and hustle and make money, you always are going to have opportunity, right? At least in the United States. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's looking for a sales guy. I can call any company today, right? I send out emails. Like I have a company where we send emails for companies, right? And the way that I get my customers is I email the CEOs and ask if they want a salesperson. And then I tell them what I'm going to do. And then they say, yeah, let's talk. Like I can get on the phone with anybody just through email because everybody wants to make more money. They don't want someone that's going to come in and do all this analysis and all that stuff. No, but you're going to actually do some work to bring in some money. If you're going to do that, we'll listen to you. But most people are afraid of that skill, in which I think selling is the easiest thing if you're honest. Selling is only hard if you're dishonest, right? But I mean, if you're an honest person, selling is really easy.
Right, and I want to jump into that, here after the break. The things that I really want to touch on before we get off of here today is this concept of being a great salesperson and what does that look like. You're starting tech and being this non-technical founder in the technology space, and then how you've gone about merging those two skill sets together to create something special with your companies and being really one of the smartest people that I know, one of the most well-read people that I've ever met. And like how all that played to you being a successful entrepreneur to this date. But before we do that, I just want to remind everyone that I'm here with Ron Story Jr. Ron is a serial entrepreneur and CEO of PitchDB, which is a search engine for speaking engagements and podcasts. And today we're talking about how to start a tech company when you don't know how to code. And we're going to get into that here in one moment. So if you like this video, please go ahead and show us some love by pressing the thumbs up button. Please make sure that you share this video with friends and family who may be interested in this topic, and make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. So Ron, let's talk about like that started in tech, right? So you worked at Northwestern Mutual. You have this semi-entrepreneurial career, I guess. You're not, I guess, a straight entrepreneur yet.
Well, you are. You're. That's not a job. You're your own boss. There's no salary. There's no draw. You file your own taxes. You got your own employees. Well, you just share office space, but you're in business for yourself, right?
Got you. So the business of acquiring customers, I guess, right?
Right. Yeah. So I didn't create the product. They created the product, but I'm in business for myself. No different than an Allstate agent or any other type of insurance agent or independent financial advisor. I'm just under their brand. Does that make sense? But you're totally by yourself. I mean, your taxes are the same as everybody else's. It's not a salary at all. There's no FICA coming out of your check.
Got you. So let's talk about that then, right? So from Northwestern Mutual, is that when you switched into technology, like directly from Northwestern Mutual?
So me being a rebel, I was at Northwestern Mutual and I said, look, I know that I want to run an office one day. I don't want to be the guy out here selling by myself. I want a team of people. And they were like, if you want to do that, you need to go somewhere else. What? Okay. All right. So I moved to Virginia Beach. And I became the financial representative for eight Allstate agencies. So I had 8 Allstate agencies that I was over all of the financial services sales for. So they had some people that sold property and casualty insurance, but I sold all the annuities and investments, me and the people that I hired. So I did that for 2 years, from 2004 to 2006. And we actually created the way Allstate sells investments today. So the same system they use today, that was created by my office in Virginia Beach back in 2006. So from there, I became the district manager. My first and only job was with Farmers Insurance. I was the district manager over Illinois and Iowa for Farmers Insurance over all of their offices, right? So I did that up until 2010. And that's when I got back into the insurance business as a wholesaler of insurance. And that was my first merger of tech and what the skills I already had.
Got you. Well, let's talk about that then. Let's fast forward to that moment. because you were becoming a subject matter expert in, well, yeah, I guess a subject matter expert as it related to insurance. So you were gaining two skills. You had deep knowledge and expertise about the insurance industry, and then you were developing and had a deep level of knowledge, I'd assume by this point, as it relates to sales. So 2012 is when technology was merged into those other skills. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so in 2010, I started an online insurance agency called fastterm.com. It was 1-800-FASTERM. That was the phone number. You could call and you could buy insurance over the phone, right? And the great thing about it is that there was no such thing as a digital signature. Now everything is signed with digital signatures and stuff. And none of the insurance companies would accept digital signatures. So I actually had duct taped these two systems together and convinced a couple companies to allow me to let my clients sign it digitally, even though they weren't there, right? And this is the first digital signature system that I had known about, right? Out of all the companies I worked with. So that was my first merger of tech and like kind of creating something, even though I didn't know how to code. Could I take something off the shelf and make it work, right? So I found out that, well, that company failed. Let me just say, it was a waste of money. Like I probably lost, I don't know, all of my savings. I lost a whole bunch of money, like double six figures on that, right?
What?
Because it was just bad. Like all of my money I had saved from farmers, all the money I had made from promoting concerts and being a party promoter, all went to trash in 2 years.
Let's stop there. What went wrong, and how did you handle this? Like, oh snap, I lost everything with with this company.
Oh yeah, well, the great thing about being an entrepreneur is that once you start working on the business, you sleep like a baby. You wake up every 2 hours crying. So with that being the case, I'm losing money every month. It's like, dude, I got employees to pay. I'm teaching my friends, I'm talking to my friends that are working for me, and it is just going to trash, right? But what I didn't realize is that you got to go raise money. You don't use your personal savings to start a company. You go and you use OPM, other people's money. But nobody in my community had ever told me that you go out and you raise money. I know that now, 10 years later, but at the time, I didn't know anything about raising money. So I was using my own cash. I dumped all my own money into it. I learned something about the importance of being able to control your sales force. I couldn't control my salespeople, so I lost a bunch of money. It was just really stupid. But one lesson I'll tell everybody who's listening: never do something in your company if you make more money. Like, say if you had a job paying you $50 an hour, don't quit that $50 an hour job to go do something that you could pay somebody $15 an hour to do. Because economics would say, keep making your 50, take 15 from that and pay somebody else, and you still profited $25, $35, right? But what I did is I quit the $50 job to go do something that I could have paid somebody $15 an hour to do.
Got you. Yeah. No, I got you. So, that business failed, it flunked. You have no money, no savings. No, what's next?
Oh yeah. And I read in a magazine that they was giving away money like you wouldn't believe out in San Francisco. So I'm like, I'm going out, I'm heading west, young man, And I saw an article in St. Louis that said that they were trying to build a software hub in St. Louis. So I cold called one of the companies and said, hey, I see you all are trying to do this marketing automation thing for insurance agencies and financial advisors. I got more experience than anybody that's willing to work at your company to help you with this. Would you bring me on as a consultant? So they brought me in as a consultant, and I helped them to penetrate the insurance agency market with that product.
Gotcha. Now, what were they selling? You said CRM or what?
Marketing automation. So it's
they were doing marketing automations. Okay, yeah. Gotcha.
So they were. If the person does this, then do that. If they do this, send this email. If they come to this page, send them this email, and wait 3 days and do this. You can automate these robots to do all of these things to follow up with people.
Got you. So you have this job are you in California?
No, I'm in St. Louis. I'm downtown St. Louis. Because remember, I saw an article that said that they were trying to build a tech hub in St. Louis. And they
Oh,
had all
oh,
these
okay. I'm
investors
sorry. I thought you said
and
they were
software
building it
companies
in.
in St.
Okay.
Louis.
Got you. Sorry. I thought you said you were in California. So you're in St. Louis doing this. You know, was that company successful?
Yeah, it's still around right now. It's called hatchbook.com. I was probably, I guess I wasn't an employee, so I was number 5 at the company, number 6 at the company, something like that.
Got you. So this is
Yeah.
your first success in entrepreneurship, even though you're not the main entrepreneur, right? So
Well,
what did you
no,
learn?
this isn't my. I'm just a consultant to the software
I
company.
understand. But what I
Okay.
mean is it's not your business. I understand that, right? You're a consultant for this business,
Mm-hmm.
but this is the first, I guess, maybe tech company that you've really been around,
Yeah,
right? That you've
exactly.
been at since the very, very early days that you have seen,
Mm-hmm.
become successful, even though it's not your business, right? So
Yep.
what lessons did you take from, I guess, doing this, hatchbook.com thing, or doing this hatchbook thing, in terms of what you use to eventually build your first success as an entrepreneur?
So what I learned is a huge thing, right? And which led to the company I started after that. My first non-technical technical company, software company. So what I learned is that tech people hate selling, right? And salespeople don't really have the temperament to sit down and code all day, right? We want to talk to people. Excuse me. So what I learned is, well, if I can sell, I can find somebody to code the stuff, right? So in most companies, when you're trying to raise money, they're trying to have a technical founder that can code and a non-technical founder that can go sell the stuff, right? That's what I learned at Hatchbook. They had a technical guy named Don Breckenridge who could code anything. Then they had a non-technical guy named Jim Sievers who couldn't code anything, but he was a great entrepreneur and sales guy. So they were the 1 and 2 punch there. And Jim and I were like best friends because we got each other. We understood what was going on. And Don was more technical. We're still good friends, but we weren't as close as Jim and I were.
Got you. So what did you build after this? And did they help you build
So
it?
yeah, they did. They did help me build it. So when I was at Hatchbook at the time, I was meeting with the insurance agents, and I had sold the largest farmers insurance agency in the country. I had sold 50 of their offices on using Hatchbook software. And you have to onboard these people to teach them how to use it. You got to onboard the customers of the software company. And as I'm onboarding them, they're like, hey man, we love what this does. We don't want to do this. Can we just give you $75 a week and never have to touch it? And I'm like, hell yeah, give me the money. So not only were they paying $100 a month, a few of them had written me checks for $300 for the service part of it. So I'm like, yeah. I go back to Don and I'm like, Don, look, we should offer this service because we'll get more money and they paying for the software. And he's like, well, we didn't raise money as a services company. I don't think our investors want us focusing on that. They want us focusing on selling the software. But I gave him examples of all of his competitors that were selling the service along with the software. So Infusionsoft and all the other Marketo, they were selling services along with the software. And he was like, no, if you want to do the service, you can do it. But we don't want any of that. You can do that on the side. So I started leadwarmer.com, and we were doing marketing automation services for people. And Don and I got into an argument because I wanted a discount on the software. Since we weren't using any of his support, my customers were never going to talk to him. I should get a discount the same way he was giving discounts to other resellers. And he was like, I'm not going to give you a discount. If you want to have a discount and do all this stuff, go build your own company. And I'm like, dude, like I'm bringing money in. Like, why are you being such a dickhead, And so, don't ever challenge me. So I went and cold called a bunch of other of his competitors and said, hey, I work here. I got this number of customers that I'm doing the services for. I'm leaving this company and I'm looking for a white label. Can I white label your software? And everybody was like, no, we're not doing that. Right? So
Yeah, why are they
I
saying
found
no? Why do you think they said no?
because they don't want a white label. They don't want two versions of their software out in the marketplace, right? So me being me, I had read the 4-Hour Work Week. I started Googling clones, MailChimp clone, ActiveCampaign clone, Infusionsoft clone. And somebody in India was selling a copy of the software for $1,000. Thank you. I found the company and I called ActiveCampaign. And I said, look, I found a copy of your software online for $1,000. I don't know how to code. I can't even set it up if I buy it. Do you all have a reseller program, or are you all looking to launch something like that where people can kind of change how your stuff looks into their own company? And they said, yeah, we're actually thinking about doing that. Do you want to be one of our first people? Yeah, you know? So they gave me a copy of their software, a login, and they let me hire a developer to change the inside and how it looked. So people never even knew that I was using ActiveCampaign underneath. I had white labeled their stuff to sell their email marketing software. So that was the first software company that I had control of the software, 100% control of the software. I still have control of it today, but I did not code one part of it, and I sold a bunch of customers.
Got you. This is interesting. Interesting conversation. For the people just tuning in, I'm here with Ron Story Jr. He's a serial entrepreneur and CEO of PitchDB, which is a search engine for speaking engagements and podcasts. And today we're talking about how to start a tech company when you don't know how to code. So please make sure you press the thumbs up button and show us some love. This conversation is really interesting, Ron, because I noticed like a skill set that you have that's kind of intangible, but I think is really evident to your success in regards to what happens when someone challenges you and tells you, I can't do something. And if you really want to do it, you better go out and find another way to do it. Right. And you've always, it seems like, responded to that challenge and actually went out and did something, with that challenge and led your career in a different, I guess, direction and raised it to a different level. And then what happens in terms of the boldness and the sheer intensity that you have when you are like challenged and then like reaching out to people, cold calling, creating these opportunities, finding these conversations. And through all of these conversations, opportunities pop up like what you're talking about with, Infusionsoft, and being able to think a little bit differently in terms of, finding clones and then using that clone as a leverage point to get Infusionsoft to say yes, in terms of you becoming one of their resellers. No, so I think that's awesome. So what would you say about, I guess, that particular skill or set of skills as it relates to, being a non-technical co-founder of a tech type of company?
So the first thing I think that everybody should learn, if you don't know how to code, you better know how to sell, right? Because if you can't sell, you're not going to convince anybody to follow you. Every good leader is a great salesperson, right? So if you don't know how to sell your ideas or sell your product, especially your ideas, right? Or the opportunities to other people, it doesn't matter how good you are, right? It doesn't matter how smart you are. So I've just been able to find what other people want and tie that to what I want, right? ActiveCampaign, it wasn't Infusionsoft, it was ActiveCampaign. They were launching this reseller program. Well, okay, you got a reseller program, well, let me tie what I'm trying to do to that. You're trying to launch that, let me work with you. What can I do to help you with that, right? How can I help you make this really cool? Maybe I can show you some designs that you can put into the new thing. Maybe I can complain about it and tell you the problems that resellers don't like about what you're doing. So, you just start reaching out to people and they just kind of work with you. If you ask enough people to marry you, somebody eventually will. That's kind of the way it works. Yeah. I mean, I think selling is the most important skill.
Well, let's talk about that then in terms of other strategies that you've used with businesses that you've worked on in the past. So, to this date, I guess in the last 10 years or since 2012, how many businesses have you started like in the tech space?
So let's go back since 2000, when I was at Northwestern Mutual, right? I've worked on 65 businesses in 5 countries.
Wow.
Right.
So
yeah.
since 2000, so the last 20 years, you've worked on 65 businesses in 5 countries.
As either a buyer of the business, a seller of the business, a fundraiser for the business, or, you know, it can, not in the sense of I was an employee. No, I was a essential part of that business, right? From payday loans to collections agencies to over-the-road trucking to marijuana businesses, well, I should say hemp startups. You know, when Ethereum was first coming out, I worked with a kid who was working on trying to do an Ethereum exchange. People always want salespeople. So they call you, and if you can sell, they're like, look, can you help us with this? Can you help us to develop this? Or can you check out our pitch or whatever? So, you know, and that has led them to giving me part of the business.
Got you. So you've been able to get part of the business because you have mastered the skill. You have mastered the skill of selling. What I wanted to hone in on are those businesses that you have kind of built, let's say from the ground up, or maybe you've acquired or something like that, because we've talked about, I guess, that being one entry point or one entryway in terms of, look, develop the skill set of selling, because really that's the most important piece of the business. Whether you're talking about selling, you know, person to person, or you know how to do a freaking great sales presentation, or you know how to create landing pages, whatever it is that sells the product and communicates with the customer, you know, that's one way to be, I guess, that, you know, co-founder or that founder of a business or a company in the tech space without knowing how to code. I guess another may be product development in terms of knowing how to create a great product. You may find a salesperson, you may find a coder, you know, to do that as well. But I want to talk about, I guess, how you got over this hump of the technical piece, right? Because a lot of people really, really, really don't know how to do that. So earlier in the conversation, you talked about taking off-the-shelf products, right? The business that failed, you know, you took off-the-shelf products and then created, you know, a hodgepodge of things, and that became your business in the tech space. But talk about the other strategies that you've deployed to get over this technical hump.
So a lot of times you can buy products online, right? So when I was working with the farmers insurance agencies after, like with Lead Warmer during that time, they all had telemarketers that would pick up the phone and make phone calls, right? In the evenings to try to sell auto insurance. And then if the person wanted a quote, they would write it on a piece of paper and then fax them all in to the guy the next morning, right? And I'm like, y'all know that they got like forms for this. Like you could just create a form online and it can send you the stuff. They're like, we don't know how to do that. So I went and paid $100 for a white label form system online and put it up, and it's called Quote Relay. It's still up right now. It's called quoterelay.com. And you go there and insurance agents use that with their telemarketers. A basic form, that's all that it is. And they just send their quotes in now instead of having to fax them. It's out there. People have already built most of the stuff. You know, all you need is one guy to set it up for you and to install it. As long as nobody's tinkering with it, it ain't gonna break, right? So you just need a minimum viable product, like something that solves the problem. So that's what I've done. I mean, with PitchDB, it was a database of a failed company. And I went and I bought that database from that company. You know, the company was trying to sell leads. They had built this large database of contacts, but the guy couldn't sell anything. And he had gotten frustrated with the company after 3 years and, you know, had shut it down. And I bought it from him in the DMs on Twitter. I mean, it literally took me 12 days to close it.
Sorry, I was taking a note. Yeah. You said something. You said something that was really you said something that was really important, and I want to, you know, get back to. But even with, let's say, PitchDB, right? You bought the raw database, you know, that tech, right? You still had to improve upon it, right? Or you did.
Yes. Yep.
So talk about, you know, that as well in terms of how did you find, you know, the resources to do that?
Okay, so the biggest fear of anybody that can't code is that they're going to hire somebody that's going to write the code and they're going to lock them out and kick them out of the company, right? Okay. Well, let me wipe that out, because don't worry about that. Let me tell you why I don't worry about it, right? It's no different than you have to hire an accountant. You're not afraid of them stealing your money, but you put in contingencies to make sure that they can't steal your money, right? You hire a lawyer, you make sure when he's filing your incorporation papers, he don't write his own name in as the stockholder. But we trust these people with everything else, but we act like coders are anything different, right? So you just put in backup plans to make sure they can't run off with your stuff, right? So my code is written by people that I've met that I've never seen him in person. He lives in Bogota, you know. He spends time either in Bogota or in Vancouver. I've never met Santiago one day in my life, right? We just talk over Skype, right? But what I do have is I have a backup of everything that he does every day, right? So the software backs up every hour automatically in a separate clone that he doesn't have access to. So even if he stole a copy of what I currently have, okay, I didn't lose anything. He got to go and try to rebuild it. Does that make sense? So I believe that the code is useless if you don't know how to get customers, right? And I have proof that the code is useless if you don't know how to get customers, because that's what I bought. I bought useless code so the guy couldn't get customers. So I ain't worried about somebody stealing the code.
Right. So stealing the code. How did you find Santiago and the rest of your team? How did you go about finding your developers?
Upwork.com. So I hired Santiago and I overpaid him because I can't afford to lose him, right? He built everything from scratch, you know? So Santiago, I told him, okay, I'm going to keep paying you more, but you need to use some of that money to hire other developers. So he hires his friends, and we have one rule. If your friends do something stupid, I'm firing all of you. So everybody loses. Not just one of you, everybody loses. And nothing has happened.
Hey, you win as a team, you lose as a team, I suppose, right?
Yeah, I mean, hey, he's winning. Believe me, $12 an hour or more is great money in Colombia.
Right. Yeah. So, you can outsource this labor because, what we're, I guess, getting to in terms of the essence is, you have to be able to find opportunity, and then you have to know how to capitalize on the opportunity through the ability to sell your idea, to sell your concept to others. When you get to the technical piece, as long as you're not doing rocket science or something like that, that piece, can come, and that piece is at a, there are a lot of individuals out there who can, really take that code that you've purchased or that you've built from scratch and really build a product based off of that. But you really need to know what the customer wants and demands and know how to sell that idea back to them. Is that correct?
Can I talk about that? Because that's the key, right?
Yep.
And I can give you 5 or 6 companies that I've helped with this, and those companies are winning today, right? So there was one of my friends, her name is Sarah, and she has a company called HIPAATrek.com, and it's a HIPAA compliant software company, right? And when I was working in T-Rex, which is the tech building in St. Louis, Sarah was in the hallway crying one day. And I said, Sarah, why are you crying? And she says, I went out and I did some cold calls to businesses and I got kicked out of every business. Now, Sarah is not a technical person either. She's really sensitive. She's kind of she's a HIPAA compliance person, like a lawyer style girl, right? And so selling was really tough for her. So I walked her through how I would go out and sell it. And the next day she came back and she says, Ron, I went to 20 offices and I had 19 meetings. And I said, exactly. And she says, I am so grateful for you helping me, right? Within 6 months, Sarah had sold $300,000 worth of her software in order to have it built. So she went out and got people to pay her for it ahead of time.
What was that switch then in terms of what you told her? What was she doing before versus what you told her to do in success?
This is so dirty. I'll tell this story, right? Because nobody knows this. So HIPAA compliance is if you go to a medical office and when you go into a medical office, if they lose any of your personal data, they get fined $10,000 per line of personal information that gets stolen, right? So it's like really important, right? So it's the biggest fear of anybody who runs a doctor's office, right? So what Sarah was doing was that she was going in and trying to pitch her product, right? And what I told her, don't do that. You're going about it the wrong way. You got to find out what their biggest fear is. And she told me what it was, that they were afraid of getting fined. So I said, do this. Walk in and say, who's in charge of HIPAA violations? Every receptionist in the doctor's office shits their pants when they hear that because they think that they're in trouble, right?
Yeah.
They know that they're fired if they did something bad, right? And I told her, I said, when they bring out the person, do not introduce yourself. Do not say anything. All you say to them, you look them right in the eye and you say, can I talk to you somewhere in private, please? Everybody went for it, right? they were scared shitless, right? so she gets them into a conference room, and now this manager is like totally afraid. Anything that she says other than this is a HIPAA violation, they're open to hearing. Okay. So she gets them into the room and she basically says, hey, the reason why I wanted to sit down and talk with you is that I'm interviewing compliance officers at all of these particular companies about the issues that they're having with compliance because I'm trying to create some software to solve it. And she says, all of them told me, girl, I thought you was about to come here and tell us that we was about to get fired.
Yeah, then that's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. And it talks about the importance of emotion, right? In terms of hitting those emotional triggers when you are selling and when you're trying to build these businesses. You have a tech product. You're not really selling the product. What you're doing is solving a customer problem that they fear, that they worried about, that's really stressing them out. And it seemed like she was able to tap into that on a visceral, emotional level, and that's how she was able to get all those appointments. And she had to be bold enough to try that approach too, right? Because it's like, man, I don't know if I could do that, right? But she got over her fear, and then it turned out to be a technique that actually worked. That eventually helps the company too, because they don't have to worry about HIPAA violations anymore.
Exactly. You got to think, she got them to try on their biggest fear, right? They tried it on. And then she said, hey, I got a solution so that you never have to deal with this again. You'll never have any more of these meetings if you use our software. She got people to pay her for 3 years of the software ahead of time. So I had come up with these questions that you ask in customer development, right? So it's like you ask all these questions. I'm not going to tell people about it, but you ask these questions. And then at the end, you say, hey, if I decide to build this piece of software, can I call you back as one of our beta testers or our first users? And everybody said, yeah, we would love to have you come back. Why? Because you were going to build a product around what they had given you feedback on, right? So when I bought PitchDB, it wasn't for speakers, right? I actually started a speaker booking agency first so that I could test out the database to see if it could even work for speakers, right? So I started this thing called Authority Spark, where speakers could come and pay us to use the database while we were still building it to get them booked for podcasts and speaking engagement, right? So if I had to tell you the process on how to start a tech business when you're a non-technical person, it's go out and talk to the customers first, build a manual version of it where you have to do it as a service, and then automate that service over time until it could stand on its own. That's the process. Go out, talk to some customers, find out what gives them a headache. You want to sell pain pills, not vitamins, right? A pain pill you need to take, a multivitamin you might take it, right? So the pain pill for speakers is they're not making enough money to quit their job where they can make enough money speaking full time, right? And if they go talk to an agency, the agency only wants to work with the famous speakers that they're guaranteed to book that are going to pay them more money. So the average speaker doesn't get booked at an agency, right? So with that being the case, that's the pain. Hey, I got a solution where you can take control of this yourself. You can be like an independent music artist and promote yourself. This guy named Joel, I can't think of Joel's last name, he's gonna kill me. But he has a book called If Nobody Loves You, Create the Demand. And that's kind of the basis of PitchDB. If don't nobody know who you are, go out and tell people about you. Go out in the streets and be your own Paul Revere, you know?
Yeah, and I definitely do know. And
Joel
that's a good
Freeman,
place.
that's his name.
Joel Freeman. So
Sorry,
shout
Joel.
out to Joel Freeman and his book. And I'm glad that you brought up PitchDB because that's a good segue. So later on this month, Ron will be joining us on a 3-day event. We haven't made it public yet, but a 3-day event in terms of, how do you go about building your own expert-based business? A large piece of that is related to professional speaking, and really how do you go out and find clients? Right. So that's something that Ron is, really, really great at, as you can see from this interview. So that's going to be on January 31st, February 1st, and February 2nd. More details will be coming in the next 7 to 8 days surrounding that as well. So Ron will definitely be joining us for that. So if people want to know more about you, Ron, and what you have to offer, where can they go and how can they get in contact with you?
So I'm on every platform as Ron Story Jr., RonStory Jr. That's Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook. I'm everywhere under that name. You Google it, all of my pages come up. RonStoryJr.com is also my webpage. The company page is PitchDB. If you're watching this and you are a speaker or you have something, you want to be on a podcast, you're an entrepreneur who want to go on a podcast to promote your business, you want to do more podcasting or more speaking, go to PitchDB.com and apply for early access. And in the coupon code, put in what do you want to put? What code word should they put in, Lawrence?
Oh, how about black money? How about that? Is that too long?
That's fine. Black money.
There we
put
go.
That in there. Yeah.
Black money. That's a coupon. So black money.
Yeah. In the referral code, put in black money, and we'll get you a free account with some free pitches so that you can use it to reach out and get booked to see what we do. And there may be even a special offer for being a part of the Black Speakers Network.
All right, perfect, man. So Ron, before we get out of here, do you have any closing words of advice that you would like to give our audience about building a tech company as a non-tech founder?
Yeah, I mean, I hope people got the gist of it, which is knowing how to sell is the skill that you need if you're going to be a non-technical founder, because everybody else can go and code, but they're usually not good salespeople. So you have to be the best salesperson. And my entire life, I've always been a great salesperson, but I wasn't born this way. I was taught at Northwestern Mutual how to sell. So there are some great sales trainings out there that will teach you how to sell. But if you can't code, you should know how to sell, because that's the only way to grow a business. And you never want to have your business held hostage by a salesperson that can take your customers and leave because they sold all of them.
Got you, man. So that's some great advice. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ron. If you like this interview, before we get out of here, please go ahead and press the thumbs up button. Show us some love so that YouTube's algorithm shows us some love as well, and more people are able to see this interview. Please make sure that you share this video with friends and family, and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to receive more Black financial content like the content that we produced today with Mr. Ron Story Jr. I would also like to thank our corporate sponsor, theblackbusinessschool.com. At the Black Business School, we don't help you just climb the corporate ladder. We help you create your own as well. What we do is help African Americans obtain a culturally relevant yet practical education in all things wealth building at an affordable price. People come to us because they have three problems that they want to solve. They want either additional freedom in their life to spend more time with their family, or to travel, or to do what they really just want to do with their own time. They want to leave a legacy behind to their family or their community, or they just want additional stability and safety, financial safety going into their retirement years as well. So at the Black Business School, we can help you with all three of these problems. We focus on three main paths of wealth building, which are stock market investing, real estate investing, and small business and entrepreneurship. And yeah, we have many classes in the Black Business School that can help you with wherever you are in your wealth building journey. So please head over to theblackbusinessschool.com. That is theblackbusinessschool.com to learn more. So on behalf of Mr. Ron Story Jr., my name is Lawrence Watkins. I am the founder and CEO of Great Black Speakers Bureau. I'm also the president and chief operating officer of the Black Business School. You guys take care, be blessed, and have a wonderful day. All right, bye-bye.
All right, thank you.